I never imagined that a simple sentence, 8 plain words, could unleash the kind of chaos that would change the entire landscape of my life. But that's exactly what happened the day I looked a group of HOA board members in the eye and said, with complete honesty, "I'm not in your HOA." Those words didn't just trigger an argument. They ignited a firestorm that would end with police cars, flashing sirens, screaming neighbors, and eventually, me owning the land they stood on. If that sounds unbelievable, stay with me. Because the truth is far stranger than the most dramatic fiction. And this story is one I'll never forget. It all started on a blistering Saturday morning. The sun was high. The kind of heat that sticks to your skin and makes the air feel heavier than it should. I had just bought a small house and a half-acre lot in a rural community. I loved the peace, the quiet, the idea that I could finally live without anyone controlling every inch of my property. No more rules about the color of my door. No more fines for leaving my trash can out an hour too long. No more strangers showing up with clipboards telling me how to live. That's what I thought I bought. Freedom. But freedom has a funny way of attracting the folks who fear it most. I had been living there for only 3 weeks when the welcoming committee marched onto my land. 3 people. Clipboards. Matching polo shirts. They walked like they owned the soil under their feet. The woman in the lead, short hair, sharp voice, the type of person who had never smiled in a picture, stopped right in front of me and asked why I hadn't paid my HOA dues. I blinked at her, confused, thinking maybe they mixed me up with someone else. So I told her calmly, "I'm not in your HOA." Her eyes widened. She sucked in a breath, like I just insulted her entire lineage. The 2 men beside her exchanged looks, as if I had declared myself a threat to the entire community. She stepped closer and said, "Everyone in this subdivision is required to be part of the HOA." I pointed at the boundary marker. "My parcel isn't part of your subdivision. I checked before buying. The HOA ends at lot 47. I'm lot 48. She didn't like that answer. Not at all. Her face tightened, and something in her expression told me she wasn't going to let this go. Within minutes, she was threatening fines, discussing legal action, even talking about mandatory compliance. I repeated the same thing over and over. "I'm not in your HOA." But she wasn't listening. She didn't come there for conversation. She came there for obedience. And when obedience wasn't given, she did something I still shake my head at today. She called the police. I stood there in disbelief as she gave the dispatcher some exaggerated, dramatic version of events, claiming I was refusing to cooperate with neighborhood regulations and creating a disturbance. Creating a disturbance? I hadn't raised my voice once. I couldn't believe it. My peaceful Saturday morning had turned into an episode of a show I never wanted to be in. But little did I know, things were only going to escalate. 15 minutes later, I heard sirens in the distance. The woman folded her arms like she had summoned backup warriors to crush the rebellion that dared rise against her throne. I wanted to laugh at how ridiculous it all was, but the situation felt too heavy, too absurd, too real. 2 patrol cars pulled up, dust swirling around them as they stopped. The officers got out, calm and professional, but you could see in their eyes that they were trying to assess whether they were walking into an actual issue or just another HOA tantrum. Spoiler alert, it was the second one. The woman practically sprinted toward them, talking so fast the officers had to ask her twice to slow down. She pointed at me, at my house, at my yard, as if she were describing a crime scene. The officers listened politely, then walked over to me. I explained everything, just as calmly as before. My parcel isn't in their HOA. They have no authority over me. The officers looked at my deed, my parcel map, and the county GIS printout I kept in my truck. They glanced at each other, nodded, and one of them simply said, "You're not in the HOA. You're free to go about your day." That should have been the end of it. You'd think common sense would win. But no. The woman started yelling at the officers, demanding they enforce HOA rules, insisting that if they didn't, the entire neighborhood would fall into chaos. She screamed about weeds, paint colors, fence heights, none of which had anything to do with me. One of the officers finally turned and told her firmly to calm down and stop wasting police resources. Her face went red. She stormed off, furious, humiliated, defeated. But defeated people don't always walk away. Sometimes they come back with a vengeance. Over the next few days, little things started happening. HOA members walking past my property slowly, staring. Anonymous letters in my mailbox telling me I better join like everyone else. Notes taped to my door about community expectations. Someone even threw a printed copy of their HOA bylaws onto my porch, like it was a holy scripture I was meant to worship. I ignored everything. I stayed quiet. But each day, an ember of frustration inside me grew hotter. One night, while scrolling through county land records, just trying to understand exactly how these property lines were drawn, I stumbled across something I wasn't expecting. Something big. Something explosive. The HOA didn't own the land under their entrance sign. They didn't own the land under their parking spaces either. In fact, a narrow strip of land, only about 20 feet wide but hundreds of feet long, ran directly under their entire front entrance, including the sign they used to declare their existence. That strip of land wasn't owned by the HOA. And even more interesting, it was for sale. At first I thought it was a mistake. I checked the legal description twice, then 3 times. But there it was. The listing had been sitting there unnoticed for 9 months. The price, ridiculously low, because no one thought it was useful. But to me, oh, it was useful. It was opportunity wrapped in irony. Without thinking twice, without hesitation, I made the call. Within 48 hours, the land was mine. The next morning, the HOA board gathered like always, meeting under their big wooden entrance sign. Except now they were standing on my property, my land, and they had no idea. I parked my truck beside them and stepped out. The woman saw me and groaned, like she expected another argument. But I wasn't there to argue. I was there to finish the story they started. I walked up slowly, calmly, with a deed folder in my hand. The sunlight hit the paper as I opened it, and for a moment everything felt silent. "You called the cops on me," I said quietly. "You harassed me. You demanded authority you never had. And now you're standing on land that belongs to me." Her face twisted in confusion, then disbelief, then panic as she read the document. One of the board members snatched it from her and skimmed it so fast he nearly ripped the pages. He looked at me, eyes wide, and muttered, "This can't be real." But it was. It was as real as the ground beneath their feet. My ground. The woman stepped back like the earth itself had betrayed her. "You can't own this," she sputtered. "This is HOA property." I shook my head slowly. "Not anymore. Not ever, actually. You've been trespassing on someone else's land for years." She tried to argue, tried to claim authority, tried to regain the power she had lost. But power isn't real unless it's backed by truth. And all her truth was crumbling. The final blow came when she realized what this meant legally. The entrance sign belonged to the HOA, but the soil supporting it? Mine. The road section they used for guest parking? Mine. The exact patch where their HOA board loved to stand for their little meetings? Also mine. They had built their pride, their identity, their authority, on land they didn't even own. At that moment, something inside me shifted. Not anger, not revenge, just clarity. The clarity that sometimes the universe hands you a weapon not to destroy someone, but to protect your own peace. And my peace was worth everything. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I simply said, "You wanted control over me, but you never controlled me. And now, you can't control the ground you're standing on." She opened her mouth to scream again, but no sound came out. The board members beside her looked defeated, slumped, beaten not by force, but by truth. I let them stand there for a moment, silent, stunned, realizing the consequences of their own actions. Then I told them the only thing left to say. "Leave my property." They walked away slowly, one by one, their precious authority dissolving with every step. And for the first time since moving there, the street felt quiet, peaceful, mine. People think battles are won through shouting, through fighting, through conflict. But sometimes the greatest victories come when you stand firm, refuse to be bullied, and let the truth do the work for you. They tried to control me. They tried to intimidate me. They tried to force me into their world. But in the end, I bought the world beneath their feet. Thank you for watching HOA Justice.